Hi, I'm Craig.
Hey, I'm Justin.
And today we're putting together a little video around cruise myths. So these might be some things you've heard and we'll give you some answers. So, does everybody get seasick on a cruise? Personally, we don't get seasick on a cruise.
Oh, there was that one time on the very first one. We got on, we weren't even left the port.
We were still in the Brisbane River.
And I had to lay down because I thought, that's not right. But it just took me a little bit for my body to adjust.
Yeah, and the scary part for that was our first ever cruise. And it was a 14-day cruise from Brisbane all the way to New Zealand and back. And I thought, wow, we haven't even left the port. But luckily, that was the only time that either of us have had any seasickness, so that's good. We have met a number of people on the ship who have suffered from seasickness, so we've got a few tips there as well. I always think it's best if you are prone to seasickness or you don't know if you're prone to seasickness to potentially have
backup pills.
Take pills with you and probably take them before you get on the ship.
Yep.
Right? Have whatever it says on the box. Have one or two or whatever it is before you actually get on the ship, because it's just going to mean that they've kicked in before you get on.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if you do suffer seasickness and you get on the ship and you find you are, suffering from seasickness, don't just struggle with it. Get help, right? You can go to
onboard doctors.
Yeah, the onboard doctors and medical centre, and they'll be able to give you a shot. And that shot is definitely known to work. Other things that people say as a tip, and you'll see it around the ship, is green apples, for example. Green apples. They find that when the ship's rocky, they'll have green apples out, right? They'll be in the buffet and things like that.
Ah, right.
Ginger's also meant to be quite good as well. You're anticipating a bit of a rough swell around the elevators and the lifts. They'll have the seasickness bags is probably the easiest way to put it, out and about and ready to go. Personally, I love it when the ship's moving like that. Rocks you to sleep when you're in your bed, or
it's not for everyone though.
It's not,
but people get used to it. It's not bad.
No,
I feel like a baby.
Absolutely getting rocked to sleep. Also walking down the corridors, and you can see the corridors are starting to move, and I like to blame that for the fact that I'm staggering. It's definitely not the drinks package.
Oh, no. Number 2, there's nothing to do.
I really think there's probably nothing further from the truth. There's generally something happening all the time on a ship. Here's the Princess Patter, they call it, so it's the daily planner. This is just a random day I pulled out of the suitcase. So if we have a quick look down this one, the activities start at 8:30 in the morning with Zumba. There's enrichment talks. We actually met the lady who was doing the enrichment talk on the Crown Princess.
She was really nice.
Yeah, Karen. She came and did one of the shore tours with us. She was doing enrichment talks, and obviously they're different on each ship and each sailing, but at that stage she was doing enrichment talks about linguistics, and one of the ones she spoke about was native Australian languages and things like that, First Nations languages, which would have been quite interesting to see, but unfortunately we had a clash that day, didn't we? Something else was going on.
She was really nice.
She was lovely, yeah, really, really informative. There's also a lot of things around shopping, right? So they'll have shopping tours and shopping talks. So there are a lot of other things you can see. If you're into gambling, I can see on this list there's things around poker tournaments, things like that. They'll also do things like bowls, carpet bowls challenges. We saw them do putt-putt golf challenges on the last ship, and they'll do those things in the atrium. So they're a lot of fun for the people doing it, but they're also kind of fun to watch. We've seen an egg drop, that was a lot of fun to watch, and paper planes, so things like that.
Jenga,
the giant Jenga, that was fun to watch and very, very loud. They'll do things up on the sports deck. So on this Princess Patter, or the daily schedule, I can see they did basketball. So they had an open day basketball. Now that pickleball's gaining a lot of popularity, there's they'll do pickleball tournaments there as well. Bingo, huge fan of bingo, really enjoy that. I've got a bingo bag, but unfortunately I couldn't lay my hands on it to show you guys. We'll show it in a future video. This one was a Christmas cruise. I just happened to pick out my birthday. I noticed 22nd December. So they were doing an ugly sweater competition. So they did a competition around who had the ugliest Christmas sweater, things like that. Going into the evening, a good tip if you haven't done a princess cruise before, they have a bar on the ship called the Good Spirits at Sea, and they do a cocktail making show. They'll do it twice a day. I think it's 5 and 7 o'clock. Yeah, and you can go and watch them make the cocktails, and they'll explain how they make them, and they'll have little cards that have all the ingredients and the measurements for each one of those ingredients and how to actually make those cocktails yourself. But the other things to do on a ship, there's things like the shows, right? So you've got a theatre on every cruise ship where you can go and have a look at the production shows. They're usually about 45 minutes. Really high quality. The ones that we've watched have been really, really good. If you're cruising with P&O, and even after P&O change over to Carnival in March this year, so 2025, there's a special show on that one called Blunk de Blunk Uncorked. It's a smaller version of the stage show that's toured around.
It's got nudity.
Very risque, but hilarious.
Yeah,
really funny. We're going on another P&O cruise for Justin's birthday. 23 this year, I think. Maybe 24, maybe. See what he can get away with. And we've got the VIP treatment for that one. So bottle of champagne, sitting right up the front, and I'm going to try and get him hauled up on stage. But we've never found that there's nothing to do. There's always something going on. You can have a look at your planner, you can have a look on your app, and you'll generally find something to do. But the other thing is you don't always have to do something. As we said in a previous video, a lot of times we enjoy just hanging out in the room and maybe watching some TV or just hanging out.
Like a lot of people, they'll take a highlighter, highlight everything they want to do, but it's not us. We just play it by ear. And
sometimes in the app we'll find something we want to do when we might highlight that on the app, not with a highlighter. There's an actual add it to your program sort of thing on the app.
A wish list sort of thing.
Yeah, that's right. And it'll remind you on the Princess app that you've indicated you want to go to this particular event. It's happening in 5 minutes. So the other thing is a cruise ship, yes, they're big, but they're not that big that it takes too long to walk from one thing to another. As long as you don't have mobility issues, most things are within a 5-minute walk.
Cruises are for old people floating RSLs.
Now, I think there is a little bit of truth to that. I think the first cruise we did, we were probably the youngest people on that ship by about
everyone is in
30
bed by
years.
5 o'clock.
Yeah. However, I think that's changing. I think we've noticed on our last probably 10 cruises that the demographic is changing. There's younger people on there. And I think for the Christmas cruise, we were probably about mid-range. Now, we're both in our 40s, and I think we were probably about that mid-range for that one. We stayed on that ship and did what's called a back-to-back cruise. So we finished one cruise, stayed on the ship, and did a short 3-dayer after that. We found that was a much younger crowd on that one. I think the average age, maybe not average, but median age would have been around the 25 mark.
Yeah.
Those sort of cruises, the shorter cruises, are appealing to the younger crowd now, which is fantastic. It's good to see these younger people getting into cruising because it helps the industry and helps with the offering into the future. And certain things that the cruise lines are doing, like having drinks packages, and even unlimited drinks packages, those things are appealing to that younger crowd as well. It's not all positive. We saw quite a few people, especially on that short 3-dayer.
Yeah, they're in bed by 11
a.m.
Yeah,
and seriously, and even the people on the bar were putting them on bottles of water because they were just
messy.
They'd gone a little bit too far on that.
Yeah,
but again, they're on holidays. They've got an unlimited drinks package and they're taking advantage of it. The positive there is that it is appealing to the younger people. It is appealing to younger people. Like cruising is something that more people are getting into, which is fantastic for everybody.
A lot of families as well.
A lot of families. The Christmas cruise we did, which was the first part of that back-to-back, I think there was a lot more cross-generational
But you could
cruises.
spot them because they all had matching shirts.
Yeah, the matching cruise shirts, which we just absolutely love. But you'd have grandparents, the parents, and the kids all on the same cruise, you know. And to the previous point, there was always something for everybody to do. Grandma might not want to go and play pickleball, but she might want to go and play bingo or try some crafts or something else. So there is generally something for everybody.
Next one, I'll feel trapped.
So that's something we've heard quite a bit, and I think what it stems from is that you are on a ship and you can be in the middle of the ocean. I think our first cruise, something that we found quite surprising, and it probably shouldn't have in retrospect, but it was surprising to look out at the ocean and not see land and not see another soul.
Especially at night, because you look out and you can't see anything.
There's no lights. There's nothing.
Well, there's lights around the ship, but
nothing outside the ship. Yeah. I mean, you're seeing the stars, you're seeing all of this, but you can't see land. And some people find that intimidating. It's not something that we've really struggled with. I think we were a bit surprised by it at first. And then when you sit and think about it, you think, well, it kind of makes sense, right? We are on a ship in the middle of the ocean. But it's not something we've ever felt that it made us feel trapped. It's not claustrophobic by any means. Your cabin is a decent size, right? Your bathroom's small.
Depending on the cabin.
But they're generally a decent size.
Yeah.
They're not... we've never had a cabin that we found claustrophobic. I think it's fair to say. There's a lot of public spaces, like your atriums on your ship, your restaurants, and they're quite large. These are quite big ships. So I don't think we've ever felt trapped on a ship.
No, never. You'll never be in your cabin.
Yeah, that's right. So we hear this one a lot when people are talking about what sort of cabin they want to book.
Yeah.
So there's different grades of cabin. So if you haven't booked a cruise before, you haven't been on a cruise, there's different grades of cabin, and they all have a different price point, right? So your cheapest cabins are generally an interior cabin. An interior cabin is what it sounds like. There's no window, there's no balcony. It's generally in the middle of the ship.
Yeah.
So with those cabins, a lot of times people will say, yep, I'll just book one of those interior cabins. They're a lot cheaper and I'm not going to be in my cabin anyway. And if that's you, fantastic, and that'll work really, really well for you. It's dark when you close the door, turn off the lights, because you've got no windows, there's no light coming from outside. So fantastic. Not really for us, because we find we do spend time in our cabin. We like to sit and watch a bit of TV. We might even get some wine sent to the cabin, have a few drinks there and enjoy it. We also like to sit out on the balcony, watch the world go by, right? Watch the ocean. We've also cruised to some really lovely areas like Fiordland National Park over in New Zealand, around Tasmania, where and around Tasmania, where the scenery was just stunning, and being able to walk out onto your balcony and see that is worth the extra cost for us. So I think it really depends on the cruise experience you're wanting to have. And one of the biggest pieces of advice I give to people who are looking at cruising for the first time is, yes, there's a lot going around on the ship. To our previous point, there's generally something going on all the time. There's nightclubs, there's all of these things you can do. But you should cruise your own holiday. If you want to spend a day in your cabin, that's fine. It's okay to do that. If you want to, avoid the nightclub that night and just stay in the cabin that night and watch TV, that's okay to do. Just bear that in mind. You know who you are. You know the sort of things you like to do. If you do enjoy kicking back, watching a couple of movies or a couple of episodes of a TV show, you've got that option on a cruise. So you want to be in a comfortable space.
Next one. It's expensive.
I think there's a couple of ways you can look at this.
Look, you just got to remember everything is there in one spot. I mean, they have to upsell particular products like your photos. The stores can be quite expensive because there's a lot of high end.
Yeah.
Oh, and you've got like the spa. Of course, you pay extra for that. But I think if you look at it, I don't think it's too expensive. You can do it on the cheap if you wanted to.
I agree. There's different ways you can do it, and I think a lot of times when people say it's expensive, they're looking at the ticket price.
Yeah.
They're looking at what it's going to cost me to get on that cruise ship. If you think of it, the way we look at when we're booking a cruise is our hotel takes us from location to location. We unpack once, we're on the ship, and most days you're waking up in a brand new port. If we did that in a traditional holiday or a non-cruising holiday, we'd have to fly or rent a car to go from location to location. On the cruise ship, all of that's taken care of for us. It also includes things like all your food.
Yeah.
It includes all your entertainment. All of that's included in your fare. You've got options to add to that, absolutely. So with Princess, we usually choose one of the two optional packages. So they have two tiers of package. So they have the Princess Plus package and the Princess Premier package. Both of those include a drinks package, and they also include some what's called specialty dining. So what's specialty dining? So specialty dining is outside and above your main dining room and your buffet.
Yeah.
Different cruise lines and different cruise ships have a different offering in what's included. But if we talk about Princess for a moment. So with Princess, in your standard fare, you'll get access to the main dining room and basically everything on the menu that doesn't have a price against it, and everything in the buffet. If you choose one of those additional packages, the Plus or the Premier package, you can also get access to what's called casual dining and specialty dining. So casual dining would be your pizzeria, be on some ships they'll have a sushi bar and a gastro pub. So with those you get a couple of those included in your Plus package. If you've got the Princess Premier package, you can get unlimited specialty and casual dining. So what's specialty dining? Some ships will have different offerings for this. However, generally speaking, there'll be what's called the Crown Grill. Think a steakhouse, right? And you can have that as a part of that Premier package. There's also Sabatini's and Italian on most ships, and that's included in that as well. That doesn't mean you have to have those packages to go there, though. You can pay the upfront cover charge in order to be able to go to those. We've done that a couple of times in the past.
I mean, you can tell why, because the food is
the food's next
quite
level.
high quality.
It's next level. The service is great, and yeah, as you say, the food is phenomenal.
It's very fine dining.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone will be looking at me if I'm a solo traveller.
We've met quite a few solo travellers on our cruises, and I think it's not what people expect it to be, is it?
It's not a... It's not a big deal because cruise people are very friendly. I mean, you do get your run-ins with some people, but majority of people are very friendly. And you can't tell the difference if they're solo travelers or not, because not everyone is hanging out together all at the same time. I mean, you could have a nap and I'd go and read a book or go down, or you'd go and do something and I'd go and do something. There's no... I just don't think it's a problem. I think the main questioning part of that is, what about if I go to the dining room? I still don't... We saw a lot of single people eating on their own.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest tips for a solo traveller is that it's easy to meet people on a cruise. Right? You can go and hang out at one of the bars. You could go to some of the onboard activities and you're going to meet people there.
Because they're on holiday and they're genuinely happy.
Absolutely. And I think the other place that you could potentially meet people is in the dining room. So with your dining room, you generally have a couple of options. We'll generally go with a private table with just the two of us. We'll sit down, have a conversation and eat. You've also got the option of more traditional style cruise ship dining. With that, that's where you choose that you want to sit with other people. All right, so you'll have a share table. So you might have a table of 10 people. There might be a few couples there. There might be some other solo
because
travelers.
They ask, don't they? Are you dining one? Do you want to share? So
absolutely. So that's another way you can meet people. I think the biggest thing for a solo traveller, and it's probably the elephant in the room, is it does cost more. And the reason it costs more is you're putting one person in a cabin they could have sold to two. So they call it a single supplement, right? So with that, some cruise lines are getting better at it. They'll have dedicated solo cabins. Those don't have that single supplement because they could never have sold it to a couple or 3 or 4 people. However, a lot of the cruise lines and a lot of the cabins on these cruise ships are designed for multiple people.
Yeah.
It's generally not 200%, that you'd pay, it might be 150%. The biggest advice I can give you on that, if you're thinking about doing a solo cruise, is reach out to the cruise line or contact a travel agent. They'll be able to give you the best advice on how to save money if you're traveling as a solo cruiser.
Okay, the next one. It's boring.
Yeah. Again, going back to what we said earlier about there's so much to do, right? And, you could easily spend an entire day doing things.
Yeah.
The other thing is we find there's a lot of people on the ship who are doing things like board games or reading books or things around the ship. That's what they've chosen to do, so that's great. You could take a wander around the art gallery.
Yeah. It's only as boring as you make it. I mean, most people want to relax, so you go up on the deck, there's more often than not people just sunbaking and sleeping.
Yeah.
Or drinking.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
Which comes to my next point. Everyone is drunk.
Definitely not.
Nah.
I think
happy, yeah.
Yeah.
Tiddly
potentially.
I don't think there was... look, I haven't seen... I just don't think they let them get to that point, really.
I think it's a thing that came about as a result of the booze cruise, right? And we're both sitting here in P&O shirts, and P&O's are renowned for being a booze cruise. Yes, we do enjoy a tipple on occasion. I think, on a cruise, that's fair to say. However, there's a lot more to do on a ship. The cruise lines do the responsible service of alcohol. So, we've seen people cut off from drinking. We've seen people put on water because they are drinking too much. So, responsible service of alcohol is something that's taken seriously on a cruise.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that everybody is drunk or everybody's drinking on a cruise these days, especially on the lines that we cruise, P&O on a longer cruise or Princess.
Unsafe.
So I think we hear this one a lot when people bring up things like the Costa Concordia disaster, or they might talk about Titanic. When we think about the number of ships that are out on the ocean and the amount of ships that have capsized or have gone down, the numbers are quite small. I think a cruise ship itself is quite safe. They take maritime safety very seriously on a cruise. We've spoken in a previous video about muster drill and all of that sort of stuff. So a muster drill is where they'll talk about what happens in the event of an emergency. Right?
That's why it's important.
Absolutely, very important to do that. Very
It's not
important
long.
to understand where your muster station is and all this sort of stuff. Yeah. So, maritime safety is taken very seriously. We've also found things like we've had to leave a port early because the cruise ship wanted to skirt around a cyclone so that everyone remained safe. So safety is front of mind for the crew and should be front of mind for the passengers as well. There'll be times where you might miss a port due to a safety issue. On our recent cruise to Tasmania, we missed Port Arthur, and we missed it for the second time. It's the second time we've tried to get there. It's what's called a tender port, and a tender port is where they'll lower the lifeboats from the ship and use those to get in and out from port. Generally that'll happen because the port isn't big enough to contain the cruise ship, so they'll anchor out a little bit from the port and they'll use those tender boats or lifeboats to sort of get in and out. So on the last cruise, they said that it was too rocky to be able to use the tenders. When we looked outside, it didn't look too bad. There was a little bit of a wave, but not too bad. But when you consider you're going from a huge cruise ship down to a small tender boat, you wouldn't have wanted to be on that tender boat. People might have got thrown around within those tender boats. So,
I mean, as disappointing as it was, the captain knows best. He's not going to put you at risk. If he thinks it's unsafe, you just got to go with it. That's why we missed Fiordland that first time in New Zealand.
Yeah, absolutely. There was too much debris in the water. It wouldn't have been safe.
A storm the night before
to take the ship in. Yeah. So I think the point there is safety is top of mind for the cruise line, for the crew, and that's best for everybody.
I'll get sick.
So
we sort of touched on that already.
We have touched on it a little bit around seasickness, but I think the elephant in the room is other viruses, right? So I don't think either of us have ever gotten that sick on a cruise.
Not on wood. I mean, no, we've dodged that bullet so far.
But there's ways that you're dodging that, right?
Yeah.
So, there's the virus that was out there and caused the world to stand still, but there's also gastros that do occur on cruise ships.
You just got to be mindful to wash your hands, use the sanitizing stations.
Yeah. That's the big thing, I think, to me, is that personal hygiene.
Careful what you touch.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same when you're in busy cities as
Absolutely.
well. Like,
The reality of cruising is you've got between 3 and maybe 5,000 people in one place.
Yeah.
Right. Not everyone is going to do the right thing, but it's your responsibility to keep yourself safe. Right. So some of the big ticket items for us, I think, is if you're on a bus tour and there's people coughing around you, pop on a mask yourself. Right. If you go into the to the buffet and you're using the utensils there to get food out, wash your hands or sanitize your hands before you start.
don't touch your face.
Don't touch your face. Because, while we sanitize or wash our hands or both sometimes walking in, not everybody does, right? And you might have people sneezing on their hand, so they're catching it, but then they're picking up the utensils, right, to get their own food out. So taking a little bit of personal responsibility there to make sure you keep yourself safe.
Next one. Too crowded.
I think at times it can feel crowded on a cruise ship.
Yeah, but it's not all the time.
No.
I mean, and there's parts of the ship that you could hear crickets. So,
Yeah.
I mean...
Not that they have an infestation.
No,
of crickets. However... Yeah. No, I think for me, the parts of cruising that will feel crowded is embarkation day. So when you're lining up to get on the ship, so you're not even on the ship yet, you're still in port, that can definitely feel crowded. I think embarkation day again, if you're going to the food options, and we said in a previous video, you don't just have to go to the buffet. There are other dining options available. Can be things like tender boats. So we talked about tender boats. Those boats can have 200 people on them. That can be a lot. That's a lot of people,
But not for long.
Exactly. It's generally a pretty quick trip. So
No different to a bus or a train, really.
But I think holistically, it's not, cruising doesn't feel overly crowded to me. Those little bits and bobs can. However, if you're just walking around the ship or, you found a nice bar to sit down and relax, generally speaking, those areas won't feel too crowded.
All right, next one. Too many kids.
That's a tough one because the cruises we've done, we haven't had a lot of kids. Don't get me wrong, there are kids, and Princess and P&O both cater really well to kids. They've got kids clubs and a lot of kids activities. But we've never found there's too many. We like to have kids running around the ship. It can get old at 1 o'clock in the morning when they're running up and down and knocking on all the... Oh no, that was our friends we were travelling with.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. But, you do hear these stories about kids running around in the middle of the night. But we've never found there's too many kids.
Can't count how many, it's not a problem.
No, definitely not.
Most of them are up on the pool deck, jumping around up there, aren't they?
Yeah, oftentimes. Or they're in the kids club, right?
Yeah.
So they're away there. The other thing to bear in mind is that most ships also have an adults-only area. Definitely not as raunchy as it sounds. Generally, it's an area around a pool where adults can go and just enjoy themselves without the kids running around. But again, I don't think we've ever found, even on the Christmas cruise we did recently, where it was multi-generational, as we said before, I don't think we found there was too many kids. There was kids, which is great,
but you're all in your own element, so everyone's in their own headspace. So to me, I don't notice people in general. I'm too busy looking at the details on the ship, or I don't know, I'm hungry, I need to eat.
Yeah.
Next one. I'll have to get dressed up.
So there are times when they do have theme nights or formal nights. So Princess will generally do at least one formal night. The last cruise we did had 2. We chose not to participate in the first one. We just had done a New Zealand cruise a few weeks before and we'd really got into formal night on that. However, on this one, we had suits with us. We did do the second formal night. We didn't bother with the first. The reason I wanted to talk about this one is on our first cruise that I mentioned earlier, when we went to New Zealand the first time, we felt quite intimidated by the way people were dressed. At that stage, I'd never owned a suit. We were on the cruise because we wanted to do New Zealand and we thought it'd be a great way to do it. And I personally felt intimidated to not go to, say, the main dining room. Whereas that wasn't necessary. People dress like we're dressed now in shorts and t-shirts, or
It's not a thing anymore, is it?
we'll generally wear jeans or long pants to the
Smart
dining
casual.
room. On formal nights, I do prefer to dress up if we're going to the main dining room. I think it looks nicer, it's a bit classier. However, you're going to see people wearing just about anything.
Yeah.
We've seen people in baseball caps with
It's not like
t-shirts.
Titanic days.
It's not, absolutely not. Most nights it's smart casual, and you'll know that because when you get your daily planner, it'll say on that what that day is, what the dress code is for that. And this one was a casual day. Right?
But that's not every restaurant either. Like,
No.
It's only particular formal night areas.
Yeah. And what we found when we did do formal night last time was that they put everyone in formal dress in one part of the dining room and everyone else in another part of the dining room. So you wouldn't feel out of place either way.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. The other thing to note, if you haven't done a cruise before and you're looking at this video thinking, is this for me? If you do dress up in formal, or even if you don't, they'll have photo areas around the ship where you can go and get the professional photographers from the cruise line to take photos of you. And we've got some fantastic, and you can see up behind us on the wall there, we've got some really nice photos in our formal dress that we took on the cruise ship. So I think the big message there is that, having to dress up and put on formal wear is your choice if you want to do it. There's plenty of options if you don't want to.
Next one. Travel insurance is not needed. Yes, it is.
I don't think we'd ever get on a cruise ship without it. There's a few reasons for it too. So, yes, you have a medical centre on the cruise ship. That medical centre is not covered by Medicare. It's not covered by your private health insurance at home. And there was a lady in front of me at guest services when I went there a couple of cruises ago, and she had to pay $10,000 in medical costs before her husband could get off the ship and into an ambulance in port. So, without medical insurance, that's on her, right? So, personally, I think even just for that, it's good to have it. Other things, and check with your travel insurer, but most travel insurance will also cover things like lost luggage. So if you've got luggage with a laptop or a camera or something, just covering that can be enough to make it worth having that travel insurance.
Onboard doctor can be quite pricey.
Absolutely.
Next one. You shouldn't drink the tap water on board.
So have a look at some videos and see how they actually do this. So generally they'll have desalination, right, to use seawater on the ship. We drank the water every time and it's not done us any harm.
May have had some wine.
Well,
so,
yes. We do like to kill the bacteria with some alcohol. But
look, they have bottled water everywhere on the ship, don't they? I mean, at every bar you go to, you can just ask for depending on your package. I don't know. I didn't have a problem with the water.
Never had a problem with it. We've drank, like I say, we've drank the water on every ship we've been on, and we've never had a problem with it. It tastes fine. It's wet.
It doesn't just taste like water.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. Next one. People fall overboard all of the time.
So unfortunately, there have been instances of people falling overboard. There's also been instances of people jumping overboard. Definitely does not happen all the time, and you'd be very unlucky, I think, for that to happen. They have rails around the decks. There's rails on balconies. We do hear tips about if you've got young kids to make sure that they can't get out on balconies and things like that.
And there's warnings in your cabin.
Yep.
Check your children. Yeah, I think it's just being careful.
And common sense, right? You know, if you've had too many drinks, maybe the deck is not for you that day, right? Or, you know, if you've got mobility issues or things like that. And don't do silly things like climbing up on chairs out on balconies and climbing up on handrails. You know, these things will get you kicked off the ship.
There's cameras everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next one. Cruise lines don't care about the environment. Yes, they do.
They do, and I think you can see where this one comes from, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the airline industry. The fact that you're getting on the plane or you're getting on the cruise ship, yes, you are burning diesel or, you know, whatever fuel they use, and going from place to place. However, the industry is changing and the industry is taking steps to be able to address these issues.
Sustainability.
Right? Exactly. So if we think about things like biodiesel, right? So they're changing the sort of fuel they're using. Things like shore power. So instead of running their engines while they're in port, they're connecting to shore power. These things are becoming more and more widespread. They're also looking at things like food waste, right? So food waste is a big issue. So, you know, if you're going to the main dining room, you can order as much food as you want. However, they'll encourage you a lot of the time to order what you're going to eat. Or they might put a charge on a second main meal or things like that. It's nominal charge, but a charge nonetheless. So they're looking at things like that for how they can be more sustainable for the environment, but also for their business model.
Like their recycling centre down below, we don't see it, but every bottle, every can, they're just so mindful of, you know, and I think it comes down to you as a cruiser as well. Don't eat too much if you're not going to eat it. We saw so much waste.
So much food
like,
waste.
Just awful.
I was lucky enough to do a tour of the crew-only part, well, some crew-only parts on one of the P&O ships, and I saw the recycling centre and how meticulously they go through the waste to pick out recyclables. Fantastic. But also food waste, and, you know, they were talking about food waste, and, you know, when they come in with plates with food still on them, how they mash it up and you know, what that's all used for.
Big process.
So it's definitely something that the cruise lines do take seriously, and it's something they understand that we as cruisers want to know that they're actually doing something about.
Next one. People get left behind.
This is true. This can be a thing. So if you're new to cruising and you haven't looked at many of these videos before, highly suggest you jump on YouTube and search for peer runners. So what is a peer runner? So a peer runner is a person who's gone out into port on a port day.
Yep.
Potentially they've made their own way around and they haven't got back in time, right? The ship does not wait for you. And I think that's a really important thing to understand. So when you're getting off the ship or when you come into port, they're going to tell you what time the all aboard time is. Now, all aboard is exactly what it sounds like. That's when you, as the cruiser, need to get back on board. So, you know...
I watch people. I watch.
Have a watch and make sure it's set to the local time where you are, or what's called ship time. Right?
Well, and to be fair, the ship will warn you if the clock is going to change the night before.
Yep,
absolutely. When to set it, what time to set it to, either half an hour back or an hour forward. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And just be mindful, we've been caught out with it before. So one of the big tips that we talk about is putting your phone into airplane mode. And we both wear Apple Watches that sync with your phone. And we've had it where, because we're in airplane mode, the phone hasn't automatically picked up the local time, right? So we're mindful to check before we get off the ship what the time is now, set it on the phone so that it updates on the watch. And be mindful and take a photo. There's usually a sign as you're walking off the ship that says all aboard time is this. So take a little snap of that so you can refresh your memory a bit later on in the day if you need to. So how can you avoid it, right? So I think the biggest thing is that. Make sure you know what the local time is and you know what that all aboard time is. Other ways people get caught out is if they do a private tour. So all cruise lines offer tours. One of the beauties of booking a tour through your cruise line is the ship will wait for you, If they can't wait for you,
well, they know
they'll
where you
get
are.
you. Yeah, they'll get you to that next port. They're in constant communication with that tour guide, so they know where you are.
We've done a few private ones.
We've done one private one. Yeah. So with that one, we looked at it to see what guarantees that provider made. We were very fortunate. The tour company we used at the time had a guaranteed return to ship. If they didn't return you to the ship in time, they would get you to the next port so you could meet up with the ship. Not all tour companies do that. So be mindful if you're looking at private tours. Yes, they cost less because you do pay a premium for the cruise line to organise it all for you. But be mindful that you may not be getting that sort of guarantee. So read your terms and conditions and ask the tour company. Do you do guaranteed return to ship? Because you don't want to be running down that pier.
Well, just be smart. Like, give yourself time to get back to the ship. Like at least 1 to 2 hours. You don't want to be stressing. I hate being late and I hate running late.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't want to be watching that cruise ship sail away while you're standing there on the dock with your bag for the day.
Knocked my drink over.
Yeah, so we did a quick clean up. So we were talking about pier runners, right? So yeah, I think, like you say, make sure you've got time to get back to the ship. If you're just jumping off and you're going for a walk around, just be mindful how long it's going to take you to get back to the ship, because you don't want to watch that beautiful cruise ship sailing away without you. Don't need that.
Yeah. Next one. You don't get a real local experience.
So this is something we've heard a couple of times now. So I think what people mean by that is if you're traveling not on a cruise ship and you're flying into a destination and you're going to a hotel, you're not getting that local experience. Personally, I don't agree with that, simply because the hotel sails you into port.
Yeah.
And from there you can go and do a local tour if you want to. You can just get off and walk around. We've done that quite a few times over the last few years, where ships docked somewhere, we've got off, gone for a walk around the city, whatever city we're in.
Do your research, hey? Like, there's ports we don't care about, but we still get off just to have a walk around and
see something different.
You might.
Yeah. Like sometimes we'll just, go to a supermarket and buy something, or, there's generally something we'll want to do in each port. But again, to the previous point, make sure you know what time you need to be back on the ship and you've given yourself enough time for that. But
I remember Fiji though, sorry. They really looked forward to all the cruisers getting off, seeing the local market, and they were all happy to see you.
Yeah.
That was good.
I mean, the elephant in the room is not every port does enjoy having a cruise ship come into it. We've seen a couple of. There was one in New Zealand that someone had graffitied on a rock, or something or other around the port there. No cruises.
Oh yeah.
And you can sort of understand that from an over tourism point of view. Some of these smaller places, you get 3,000, 4,000 people get off a ship, and it takes up a lot of the local infrastructure.
But the cruise ship now has been mindful of that. So, like, we even... Didn't they take us through that part?
They did.
To the other side, so we weren't harassing or annoying the locals.
Yeah, and I don't want to say which port it was, but, people who have done these cruises before will know where I'm talking about. But the ship docked at a very small town, and then they ferried us in buses to a larger city. The larger city was very welcoming of the cruise ship because it injects money into the local economy. The smaller town, it's hard for them to have that many cruises there because the people getting off the cruise ship will use the local bus service, so people can't get to work, they can't get kids to school, things like that. They can't get into their supermarkets or little things like that. But the cruise lines, as you say, are mindful of that, and so they'll put on free buses to get you to that larger city that doesn't have a dock. So, they do things like that. I think you can have a local experience if that's what you want to do, right? You can also have the full tourist experience if that's what you want to do. We've sort of done both, I think, it's fair to say. Next
one. There are not enough lifeboats.
So this is, I think, comes back to things like Titanic, right? Great movie, horrible tragedy that happened.
Don't reference it.
Yeah, horrible tragedy that happened. Lots of lives lost. But maritime safety law changed as a result of it, right? So you now have to have more seats on lifeboats than you've got passengers and crew on board, right? That's a big part of maritime safety law, and it's a big part of safety on a ship, not just a cruise ship, any ship. So, these things have changed, and they've changed over the years. And it doesn't just go for lifeboats, it's also life vests, right? So you've got to have life vests that aren't, more life vests than you need for the number of souls on board. Speaking about life vests, it's also important to understand that you've got life vests for adults, you've also got life vests for children. So they've got specific life vests designed for children. And the crew will help with those. They'll hand them out if required and all that sort of stuff.
Next one. There is no privacy.
And I think that comes back to the overcrowding, and I think the advice is the same. So, you do have adults only areas where you can get away from children. You've also got your cabin is the ultimate privacy. The days of sharing cabins with, other people.
They're quiet too, aren't they?
They are.
With all the noise of cruise bands and parties up on the top, you shut that door, your screen door of your balcony, you can't hear
No, that's right.
anything really.
Yeah, that's right. And part of that comes down to, choosing the right cabin. And we'll do another video about, making sure you're choosing an appropriate cabin and one that's not going to be too noisy. But, I think cruising is, you can find privacy if you want it. There was something a few years ago. So Princess have bought out their medallion. So the medallion is a little RFID that you wear on a lanyard, or you can purchase accessories for it. When they bought that in, one of the big things about it is you can just walk up to the cabin door and it'll unlock. You don't need to swipe a card or anything like that. When they did that, when they put that technology onto the ships, they also put little screens outside your cabin, and on that screen it'll say your name. So it used to say your first and surname, whereas now it'll say your first name and your last initial. So little things like that they're doing to sort of enhance that privacy and that security as well.
And there's a privacy button.
There is a privacy button. So similar to if you're in a hotel and you hung out the privacy, do not disturb or privacy hanger, then it's the same concept. Push a little button on that screen and it'll let the room attendant and everybody else know that you're...
Go away.
Go away. Leave us alone. We're trying to sleep.
Next one. Eating healthy is not an option.
So, yeah...
I disagree.
Yeah, I've heard that before. So there's generally healthy options everywhere you go.
I think the problem with... I think that statement... It's because there's an overwhelming amount of food on everywhere you look.
Yeah. And there's definitely unhealthy options if that's what you want. Princess have got their new premier desserts, which are ridiculous. We've looked at them and gone, who is eating this?
They're unhealthy foods.
Yeah, if that's what you want to eat, then that's fine. I just don't think I could manage it. But yeah, agreed. I think if you go you practice your portion control and have a look at the menu for healthier options. They always cater to different food allergies or different ways of eating.
Especially in the restaurant, they'll ask, won't they, if do you have any
food allergies or any issues like that. We generally eat keto, and we're definitely able to eat keto on the ship. We sometimes go off keto on the ship. But yeah, the option's certainly there.
Next one. It isn't for kids or families.
So I think we've probably addressed a lot of that already, but I think on our Christmas cruise this year and a few of the previous cruises we've done where we've seen a lot of multi-generational families, there is definitely enough.
They do Christmas well.
They do, absolutely. That's definitely our new tradition, is Christmas on a cruise ship. We've done 2 already.
Brilliant.
We've booked the next 2 as well.
I've never seen so many Christmas trees.
Yeah, very well done up for it.
And Santa hats.
Check out our room review from the Crown Princess. We've put some footage in there about how the ship was dressed up for Christmas. But definitely a lot of things, I think, for families and kids to do. It's a matter of, again, pick up your daily planner, have a look at the things that are available. if you've got young kids and you want to put them into the kids club, go and check into that on the first day to make sure that the kids have a place in there.
Yeah.
Have a talk to the crew in there, the staff in there, about what times there are and what activities the kids are able to do. I think one last point on the kids clubs and, things for families to do. The kids clubs are broken up over different age groups. Talk to your cruise line or the staff on board. But, it's not little kids with the teenagers and things like that. They break it up over the different age groups.
Yeah. And the kids that we've met in the past have always loved it. They've come back and they're like, oh, we got to do this, we got to do that.
Yeah.
All right, next one. You can't exercise.
Yeah, so you definitely can.
Just walk up the stairs.
Yeah.
Walk down the stairs.
Yeah, I think a tip we gave on previous video, we talked about the elevators and they get quite busy. So
don't use them.
Yeah, so if you have had a few of those princess desserts or even one, you might want to take the stairs instead. Well, exactly. Or that extra dessert. You might want to take the stairs, but it's not just that.
I think it's easier. Sometimes I think it's easier walking up the stairs than down the stairs.
Especially when it's rocky.
Yeah. I haven't done it yet, knock on wood.
Knock wood. But, most ships these days will have a fully equipped gym. A lot of ships will also do things like classes.
Exercise
so group classes. Yeah, there's running tracks on a lot of ships.
Not all of them, but there's a lot of... You can walk around the deck. It's really nice.
Some ships have what's called the promenade deck. So on the Crown Princess, for example, or the P&O Pacific Encounter, you've got a full wraparound promenade deck. So you can generally walk the full way around. And it'll tell you on a sign on the deck how many laps of the promenade deck will equal a mile. Things like that.
What was that thing that happened to your watch?
Oh, because I wear an Apple Watch and I use the Strava to track my steps. And I went for a jog one morning around the promenade deck on one of I can't remember which ship it was now, and the ship was moving and the telemetry on my watch picked it up that I was doing, I think, about 15 kilometres an hour. Now, I'm lucky to run at maybe, 3 or 4 kilometres an hour at a good jog. But apparently I was doing like 15 kilometres an hour. When I looked at the map of my run, I'd been running around the ocean and just going up like this. Yeah, I've never beat that personal best, and I don't think that's the personal best I'm ever going to beat. But there's a lot of options to exercise. We walked quite a bit on the last cruise. You've got sports courts as well, so you've got basketball courts on a lot of them. You can play putt-putt golf. Like, there's a lot of options if you want to get some exercise.
They do like a partial golf thing. You can tee into it.
Oh, yeah. So on the Royal Princess, and I think on some of the other Royal class ships, they have a driving range type of thing where you have a net. So you're in a netted area, and that net you can sort of hit the balls into. I mean, I think in the golden days of cruising, as a lot of people like to call it, you used to be able to hit your golf balls off the ship. I'd refer you back to the caring about the environment. Nothing's allowed to go over the side of the ship anymore.
Next one. The spa isn't for men.
So we both had an experience of this on the last ship.
Oh, that was so good.
Yeah, I'm in my 40s, mid to late, I think is the term. And I had my first ever pedicure. So she got in there, she got the cheese grater out, and she got rid of the dead skin and gave it a good massage and all of that sort of stuff. And it was great. And when I went in to get that done, there was another gentleman sitting beside me who was having the same treatment. We both had haircuts on that ship. I mean, I think
it's for everybody.
I think so too. Yeah, absolutely. Get into it and enjoy it.
I'll have to tip.
So you will hear a lot about tipping on on the different cruise forums. If you're on Facebook groups that talk about cruises, you'll see a lot about tipping. I think it's important to know that cruising out of Australia, tips are included, or they call it gratuities. Gratuities are included. You can, however, give additional tips. We generally will tip our room steward.
Cash.
So take some cash on board for that.
And a nice little card.
Yeah, we did a nice card. Yeah. On our most recent cruise, we also tipped the sommelier. We don't mind a glass of wine, but we found he was going above and beyond.
Brilliant.
He was just fantastic. Andy, Andy on the Crown Princess at the
Brilliant,
moment.
brilliant.
He was fantastic. So, you know, we definitely wanted to look after him. So we gave him a tip and a nice Christmas card. And I think the other thing to remember is that, you know, that was a Christmas cruise, and all the crew on there had spent time away from their family as well. So, you know, they were away from their family and making sure that our Christmas was amazing, which it was. So, you know, I think it's not customary for Australians. It's not something we're used to doing all that much. So, you know, it takes a little bit to get used to, and it can be a bit awkward. I'm handing you some money for something, but
it's not awkward though, really. They appreciate it. It's showing them that you appreciate them
and the work they've done, because the crew work really hard. They work long hours, you know, a lot of days in a row. They don't get a lot of time off, so, you know, it's a small way for us to show the appreciation we have for them.
Next one. Bigger ships are always better.
So I think our favourite ships so far have been big ships. We've enjoyed the Royal class ships, so Majestic Princess and the Royal Princess. We're also booked on another one of the Royal class ships, the Discovery Princess, for Christmas this year. They're the biggest ships, I think, that Princess have, and we've really enjoyed them. They are a beautiful ship. Things to remember though, the smaller ships, so the one we just did Christmas on was the Crown Princess. It's a smaller ship, and it can get into a lot of ports that the larger ships can't. So you'll often find, if you're looking at world cruises or cruises that go through Panama Canal or things like that, they'll be those smaller ships because they're able to navigate through those sort of areas. So we found the smaller ships have a lot of the same amenities. You know, the spaces in the public areas might be a bit smaller. They might have a smaller theatre, things like that. But all the amenities are generally still there. So there's still a beautiful ship.
Okie dokie, next one. Cruises aren't for real travellers.
So I think this goes back to the previous point about local experiences and sort of things like that. My point is that I find it to be real travel, and, you know, it's something that we enjoy doing, and it really is around that point of I get on the ship, I unpack the bags, and it takes me to different locations.
Travelling.
Right? It is. Travelling to different locations, exactly. So I think it's quite easy to debunk that one. Cruises are for real travellers. We are travelling. We are going from port to port. We are having amazing experiences. And meeting great people.
You're still friends with some of them today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next one. You won't meet people.
You will.
You will.
So, you know, we've met so many amazing people on different cruises, and as you say, you know, we're still friends with some of them now, quite a few of them now. Just these people are on the same experience you are.
Yeah.
Right? They're there to have a good time. They're there to relax. They're there to get away from life, and to just, you know, have some fun. So like I say, we've met some amazing people. My tip is, you know, give them your phone, get them to add themselves on Facebook or something like that, so you can keep in touch.
Don't be shy.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we'll sit at a bar, and we mentioned before the cocktail show at Good Spirits. We've met some really fun people while we've been doing that.
And you'll find people just genuinely want to chit chat. So
yeah.
Don't be afraid to talk. You know, everybody has a story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I hope that helped everybody. So that's our list of cruise myths, and hopefully we're able to debunk those for you. Are there any others that you can think of? If so, pop them in the comments and we'll see if we can come up with something for those as well. If you've got any other video ideas, pop them in the comments as well, because we'd love to have a bit more of a chat. We've got some other things planned, so we want to talk about Disembarkation Day. We just did another video on Embarkation Day, which should have come out a week or two ago. We want to talk about that worst day of cruising as well, the one where you're having to get off the ship. Right? We've got some other ones booked around other things you can do on cruise ships, and just things to sort of help you acclimate yourself to what this sort of holiday is all about. Until next time, hit the like and subscribe button. Subscribing to the channel does help us grow. It tells the algorithm that this is something worth watching and might be helpful for someone else as well. Until then, see you next time.